Welcome to the 2017 Virtual Summer School Series sponsored by the NAEPSDP and the Program Staff Development Committee of the Southern Region Program Leadership Network and hosted by the University of Arkansas Cooperative Extension Service. Today we're going to have a panel discussion on the subject of professional advancement for extension educators. And the panel today is going to be moderated by Dr. Rich Poling. Dr. Poling recently retired as the Director of Program and Staff Development with the University of Arkansas Cooperative Extension Service. Rich worked for Extension for 40 years as a county agent, state specialist, and department faculty member and department head at the 1862 land-grant universities in Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas prior to his retirement. He's currently serving as the treasurer of NAEPSDP and is spending as much of his spare time as possible fishing. Rich has degrees in wildlife management and agricultural economics and agricultural education, all from The Ohio State University. So Rich, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Jill. I appreciate that. It's good to be here. Good to get off the water for a little bit, okay? Well, hello, everybody. We're glad that you're going to be able to join us today for this webinar. And I do want to say that it's good for me to be here, and we've got an excellent panel. And so let's go ahead and meet them, and I'll introduce them one at a time. We're going to start with Dr. Melissa Cater. She's an associate professor in program evaluation at Louisiana State University and LSU Ag Center, the Department of Agriculture and Extension Education and Evaluation. Melissa leads statewide evaluations for the 4-H Youth Development and SNAP Ed programs. She also teaches graduate level courses in program development, program evaluation, survey design, data analysis and interpretation, and data collection methods with children and youth. All those things that everybody just loves to do. Okay. Her research interests include evaluation of non-formal educational programs, assessing program quality and implementation of programs, and survey design. We're glad to have you with us today. Melissa, if you'll say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here today.
All right, great. Thank you, Melissa. Our second panelist is Dr. Alan Ladd. He's a Regional Extension Education Director with the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. He serves 7 counties in southwest Iowa. Alan has also served as the Southwest Area District Director for Iowa State and previously held positions with Kansas State University Research and Extension as a County Extension Director and also a County 4-H agent. He earned his bachelor's degree in Animal Sciences and Industry, master's in Adult and Occupational Education, and a doctorate in Curriculum and Instruction, all from Kansas State University. Welcome, Alan. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Great. Thank you, Alan. All right. Our final panelist is Dr. Michael Newman. He's a professor and director of the School of Human Sciences at Mississippi State University. For the past 6 years, Michael has served as director of the School of Human Sciences at Mississippi State and as a professor of agriculture education, leadership, and communication within the school. He has 13 years of experience with Mississippi State University Extension Service as a planning and evaluation specialist, and 27 years plus as a faculty member at MSU, teaching primarily in program evaluation and research methods. And I can just say from a personal note, he's also a fair to Midland golfer based on my experiences with him. Welcome, Michael.
Used to be. I don't get to play golf much anymore, but I do get to spend a little time looking at promotion and tenure packets. Today seemed like a particularly good day for me to be doing this because the rest of my time today I've spent looking at those packets from either other places or from here. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Michael. I hope most of them you see are at par or higher, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
okay.
They are.
Okay. At the beginning of today's session, we asked you a couple of poll questions to see who you are and what professional advancement system you're working with. This will help our panel be able to cover some topics that are most relevant for you today. As many of you know, the duties and responsibilities of extension educators, either at the county, the district, regional, or even at state level, don't always match up with the traditional academic expectations of the universities. You know, over the years, the difference has often resulted in frustration for extension educators and their attempts to go for promotion or tenure, or even in their annual performance reviews. The promotion and tenure systems, of course, differ from institution to institution and also from position to position. Some institutions have promotion and tenure. Some, like here in Arkansas, just have promotion and no tenure. Some institutions use similar promotion and tenure processes for both county faculty as well as state faculty, while others have completely different systems for promotion and tenure for state faculty versus county educators. So we know that there are a lot of differences out there, and we're going to try to give you some information that addresses all of those. I personally have been through 4 different promotion and tenure processes at the 4 land-grant universities that I've worked at, and there are a lot of differences between those when I was a county agent versus when I was a faculty member. So we know that there are differences out there. We're going to try to deal with some of those as we talk about some of the tips we give you. Our goal today is to provide you insight, recommendation, and tips from our panel of experts of how an individual with an extension appointment with the land-grant university can prepare and submit the best possible promotion and tenure documents for his or her situation. Okay. The information today may also be beneficial for you in improving your annual performance review documents. We hope that the information will be helpful today, but if you have questions that aren't answered during the panel presentation, we do want you to make sure you ask those questions using the Q&A function in Zoom. Okay, we're going to start today's discussion by talking about the planning process involved in the promotion or tenure process. And Alan, I'm going to ask you if you'll please give us your thoughts on what are some of the things that an individual should do in preparing for the promotion or tenure process.
Yes, I'd be happy to, Rich. I think one of the first things that you need to do is double check with your supervisor to see if it's a requirement or if it's optional to do promotion and or tenure. And obviously that may have been something you checked on during the application and interview process, but maybe that slipped through the cracks. So double check with your personnel people to make sure that you've done that. For example, Iowa State has promotion for state staff members and also tenure for selected faculty positions. For county staff members, that is not an option. It's strictly county paid, and so there is no tenure or promotion availabilities. Oftentimes we think, well, we'll just wait and see if we really like the job before we start doing any kind of work towards our promotion or our tenure. And as you know, time flies, and pretty soon it might be halfway to your promotion and tenure timeline or deadline, and you haven't gathered anything or haven't done anything towards that. So again, we want to double check to see how long we have to make that tenure leap or make that promotion. Typically, it might be 5 to 7 years, and again, it will vary by institution, and so you'll need to double check with them. But it's something that you want to do immediately and make that part of your planning and goal setting process. Oftentimes, there will be a mid-year or midterm review for tenure and promotion. So find out if that's a possibility. If it is, what is involved in that process? More than likely, there'll be a committee appointed to work with you to review and see where your strengths lie, maybe some areas that you need to strengthen before you're finally up for promotion or for tenure. And again, that may be appointed if you get to select some individuals. Make sure that you select very carefully and meet the requirements of those that might be inside your department or school. Maybe there's some at-large types of appointments that could be made as well. Also, in determining your projects and your activities that qualify, one of the things that I looked at when I was working on my PhD was, will this work that I do during my doctorate be helpful? And I thought I would continue in extension work. So would that be helpful after I get done with the dissertation and all of that? And even as you look towards a master's degree, if you don't currently have one, is that going to be helpful in my current position, or would it help me establish a ladder to climb for successful promotion and tenure in other jobs or other activities? So some of those things that we can do to go ahead and get our feet wet would include co-leading some projects or co-writing articles that might be published. And also, don't be afraid to initiate new projects within your scope of work. Obviously, not everything that we try or that we do is successful. So we may need to fine tune that. And we may just say, hey, this was not successful at all. We failed. We've learned from it. We'll move on and try something else. And as we look at extension work, a lot of times we think about companies doing research and development, or R&D. I heard recently a new definition for R&D that's called rip off and duplicate. And I think with extension, we do have a lot of duplication. It may be new to your state, it may be new to your county or region, but maybe it's been done in another area or region for a number of years, but it's due to the faculty or the people that you serve in your job description. So make sure that you give credit to your original author when you're doing those kinds of things. And we don't all have original ideas, and that's fine. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Also, other areas or ideas that you can do would be to read professional journals to get some inkling of what's going on in your area or research or the area that you want to be in. And if you don't know what professional journals are out there, obviously you can do some searches, but also ask some colleagues that are in that same area, what do you read? What professional organizations do you belong to? And how can I be involved with that? Also, as we look at those professional organizations, most of them will have at least opportunities to attend a face-to-face professional meeting on an annual basis. And that would be an excellent chance to go ahead and meet folks face-to-face to network. I find that when I go to those meetings, oftentimes the networking after sessions or over your favorite beverage in the evening may be as helpful or more helpful than some of the breakout sessions or some of the different speakers that may be involved. And again, you got to find your comfort level. If you attend a professional meeting and it's not quite what you were thinking about, join another organization and see what they have to offer. And so as we think about these things, again, time flies. We want to document our successes. So as you think about your yearly evaluations, write those things down that you do. And again, we want to do that as they occur, just maybe a bullet point, a couple of sentences. Hey, I did this. Maybe I presented on a Zoom webinar for virtual summer school. And then that way, when you're reviewing that information several months later, oh, yes, I did that back in August. I'd completely forgotten that. So, and your plan of work, if you have a plan of work that you're following or within a different group that you may be involved with, make sure to document that. Just, again, some electronic notes. And as we prepare and think about those, if you're using logic models or other types of templates, go ahead and plug those in to see how that will work with your success rate with your documentations. Also, we want, as we talked about networking, we want to see other successful VITAs and other resumes that we have of our colleagues, those especially that have maybe recently completed promotion and tenure. Another thing that we do at Iowa State, as we get down to the final maybe 3 candidates for a position, especially with administrator type positions, the resume or the VITA is given to us to look at prior to the interview. That's an excellent chance to see, okay, what did this individual do to be successful? How have they risen through their career to this particular job that they want? So again, be succinct, but yet cover all of your accomplishments. Make those bullet points, brief and to the point. But again, we've got to document it because, especially as a retiree, Rich probably realizes that those brain cells may not be as good as they used to be. And as I approach retirement, I know they're definitely not as good as they used to be. But anyway, if you have a mentor group or promotion tenure committees appointed, be useful, help them to help you and tell them what you want, and make sure that you ask questions. Send them emails. Hey, I'm not understanding this. I need help. What can we do? And maybe there's even a small group that you're appointed to. All of you have joined Extension in a similar time frame, a little support group, so that you can go ahead and commiserate and plan together, and ask for honest feedback if you have a mentor. So again, requirements, presentations, regional, state, national, all of those are chances to give something and put onto your resume. Research, one question to ask would be, as we think about Extension, do demonstrations count as research? If they do, make sure to include that. Publish in journals, Journal of Extension, the different professional organizations all have journals. And as Lee Stivers from Penn State Extension said in the Journal of the Association of Ag Agents, we practice rejection by letting you down easy. So don't be afraid to go ahead and submit something. Give them a chance to go ahead and critique your work and make it a better professional document for yourself. And what happens if I don't gain promotion and tenure? Well, try again. Or if there's a time limit, find out what that is and seek out additional help to make yourself successful. That's some of the main points I wanted to cover today, Rich.
All right. Great advice, Alan, and thank you for mentioning about the retirees' brain cells dying. They don't, some die, but the other ones take over, the retirement ones take over. Melissa and Michael, do you have any additional comments for that?
So, Melissa, I don't see you jumping in. I'll jump in real quick. And Alan, I think mentioned this, but I would like to just reiterate it. I could not stress enough, you be great at the job you currently have. When someone hears your name in the context of a promotion, you want them to say, oh yeah, she'll be great at that. Then you're off on the right foot, I think.
I'd like to jump in and offer just a little bit of, I guess, what I consider practical advice, because when I think about what I did to prepare for this whole PNT process, one of the things I was so glad I had done is I kept a really good calendar. When I first started work for Extension, that was back in the day, everything was paper. And now that we've moved on to electronic and Microsoft Outlook, I am so very thankful to have that kind of a tool at my disposal. So I document everything. Like, think of it as billable time. From the time you come to work at 8 o'clock until the time you leave, whatever time that is during the day, try to document everything you do. You'll be so thankful when you go back to try to put this document together that you have that kind of information at your fingertips. So in terms of practical advice, that's the one piece that I would add to this. And then I'd like to just reiterate something that Alan said. One, define your program right off the bat. What is it? Fix a logic model that goes along with it. So two, you can begin evaluating right from the start. It's not something you can do right at the end and hope to have enough results to impress your P&T committee. You need to begin doing all that right from the very beginning.
All right, very good advice from all of you. Just remind everybody that if you haven't been participating in the earlier sessions this week, that some of the things that they're talking about today were covered in some of those sessions earlier. So if you haven't got a chance to participate in those, make sure you go and watch the recordings. Right now, we're going to, I want to remind you that if you do have any questions, make sure you use the Q&A function in Zoom to ask your question to the panel. We'll talk about some of those questions a little later on, okay? We're going to move on to another topic right now and talk a little bit about the actual planning, development, the content of the documents and forms that you'll be creating for your promotion and tenure application. Michael, would you like to start us out on this topic?
Sure, Rich, thank you. I'm going to start us with a little story. Probably about 15 years ago, we had a vice president here, Dr. Rodney Foyle, great man. And we were doing a grant writing workshop. Dr. Foyle was providing the introduction. And he gave us a list of about 10 things to help us be better grant writers. And I think 6 of those things were read the RFP. the request for proposals. And so being smarter than the average person, I think after the fourth or fifth time he said that, I figured out that that was probably kind of important to read the request for proposals. So I got that. And I guess what made me think of that was, I think probably the number one thing I would share with this group would be to make sure you know the guidelines, the requirements for the promotion you are currently in line to receive next. Now, in a minute, we'll talk about other career advancement things. And where you are, I'm sure there are guidelines that are too detailed, too long. You don't want to spend much time with them, but they're really important for you. And they might have, sort of general information in them. I'll give you a quick example here at MSU. Our assistant professors know that they need to show that they're excellent in one area of teaching, research, or outreach and service, and at least satisfactory in the other two areas. That's the kind of thing you get from those guidelines. If they're going to be promoted to full professor, they need to be excellent in at least two of those areas. That means they have a national reputation in those areas. So for our extension agents, there's a list of criteria. If you want to move from agent 2 to agent 3, well, now you have to have a master's degree. Now you have to have documented innovative, creative, progressive performance as an agent 2. And so these are the kind of things you pick up from the guidelines. They'll all probably have a years in rank requirement. You can go up for agent 2, agent 3 after you've been an agent 2 for 5 years, for example. So those are important. They're also important because they're going to give you specifics about what's required for your dossier. Pay close attention to that, because there's some places where they'll say, hey, you need to have a summary of your teaching evaluations. Okay? That's just one example, but pay attention to what's required for your dossier. Also, pay attention to the things that are accepted but may not be seen by all who review your documents. And I've had experience with this week, like I mentioned earlier. But when I send a faculty member's dossier to an external reviewer, we don't usually send all the appendices that go along with it. We send the application for promotion, the faculty member's cover letter saying why they think they should be promoted, sort of their justification, and a copy of their vita. And so if you have something in your appendix that you think is very important to show your worthiness for promotion, make sure that it's highlighted and summarized within the application itself. Make sure that whoever's reading it picks that up. And I think Alan said earlier, make it easy for them. And that's exactly what we're talking about. You want to make people pick that up and say, oh yeah, here's why they should be promoted. It's highlighted right here. It might be summaries of your client satisfaction surveys, a syllabus you've done with a very innovative course that you've done or that you've developed, a new extension program that nobody had before, reports of needs assessment, reports of program evaluations. All those things are things that are useful to help make your case for being promoted and or tenured. Okay. I think Alan already mentioned this, or maybe Melissa mentioned about when you do it, but it's never too early. But it's also never too early to think about positions for which you may not currently be in line for promotion, but you might aspire to in the future. And based on who we have in our audience, that might be a district coordinator for extension, associate director, a department head, a dean, a director, etc. And this is real important. And Melissa, I'm going to let you talk about mentoring. I'm not going to talk about it, but this is a good place to use them when you're trying to figure out what do you need to do now to prepare yourself to be in one of those positions. Maybe you need more formal education. Alan mentioned that before. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap between what Alan's talking about and what I'm talking about. My personal experience is that you need to say yes a lot more often than you say no. Everybody's really busy, okay? But when you're asked to chair a committee, lead a project, write a report, develop a program, serve as an officer of an organization, that's an indication that people are telling you they think you have the ability to do things that are important. And you really want to say yes. And if you think it's going to benefit your colleagues, your profession, your discipline, your unit, try to do it, okay? And as you do those things, before you know it, you will have built a professional network that will be valuable to you in so many ways. A few years ago, I was an officer in a group that Melissa and Rich and are members of, some of the rest of y'all. And I got a call from USDA, and they were asking me, hey, we've got some projects. We want some people who are knowledgeable of extension evaluation to serve on these panels to select these projects. And so at the time, I had been working closely with this organization for a while, and I knew a lot of people in extension evaluation around the country. And so they said, well, here's this project. I said, okay, get this person. Here's this project, get this person. But you know, before long, they said, you know what, we want you to come do some of these. Because they realized that I knew a lot about folks that were doing things around the country. So another thing I would say is it never hurts to spend some time in your current job doing things that are going to be important in your next job. Volunteer to supervise employees, write grant proposals, meet with stakeholder groups other than your local ones. This is something else that you might discuss with your mentors when you want to share with them what your goals are and let them help you decide some of those things. Another important thing to consider is whether some specialized skills would be helpful in you either getting one of those positions or being more successful if you do get one of them. Most extension services, universities in general, they have administrative programs, leadership training programs. There's several good ones in extension that are national in scope to help you develop skills, learn to be a new leader, a better leader. In my job now, it's important to be able to understand financial reports using the software that your university spends for a lot of its basic functions. I can't tell you how much time I spend in Banner, which is our financial software package, in Course Admin, which is where we submit courses for updates or new courses for approvals, that sort of thing. And we have this software called Page Up People, where this is the software our human resources organization uses to hire people. And so I have to approve the position. I have to go in and do the offer letter, et cetera. You have to learn all these sorts of software. I would just, if you want to be Extension's new social media specialist, for example, you better have a good Bitmoji. And if you don't have one, you can call me and I'll help you get it hooked up. Okay, Alan and Rich already mentioned this, but don't rely on your memory to keep up with all the things you have done. I recommend that you have at least 3 places where you store materials that you need to refer to when you're doing your P&T or just promotion documents. Okay. First of all, an email folder where you save emails where people have asked you to do things or thanked you for doing things. A folder on your computer for documents that you created that represent, performance. And a paper folder in your desk for the same kind of things. Thank you notes, letters that you get from higher ups telling you that you've done a great job with this, etc. I put them in the same folder where I put my yearly contract. You know, they just go right in there together. Hey, you got this contract. You need to put something in front of it before you get another one, or maybe you won't get one. If you haven't started doing a good job of keeping up with those, do. We're laughing about memory, and y'all, for most of my life, I've had a great memory. I can remember almost anything, but let me tell you what, it's not as good as it used to be. It's nice to be able to put your hands on something. I also recommend that you set a date to update your VITA and your annual review, whatever you call that process, periodically. At our house, on the first Saturday of every month, my wife has a mark on the calendar that says change air conditioner filters. Okay? And when she changes air conditioner filters, I pull out my folder and say, hey, what do I have in here? What do I need to put on my VITA, et cetera? So that's a good way to do it. And I had to switch to that because when I was doing just extension evaluation, I was responsible for reminding people to do their quarterly reports. I had it built in. When I reminded people to do their quarterly reports, I reminded myself, hey, get this done. Right. Once a year, at least, when you do your annual review, make sure you update your VITA or resume. Sometimes advancement in your career means applying for a new job. You might want to have that sort of up to date. Melissa talked about the calendars. I use an electronic calendar now, which I love, but make sure your electronic calendar keeps things in the past. And Melissa, that's a great idea about keeping up with your time and just saying, I did this, I did this, I did this. But I don't do that as well, but certainly all the meetings, the events that I'm doing, just like this webinar, they'll be on my calendar. If I forgot to put them in somewhere, I can go back and make sure I document that. So that's my sort of suggestions for doing the planning to make sure you get your document in good shape when the time comes. Nothing replaces, though, knowing your own university and its requirements and making sure you understand those very well.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Just as a reminder, though, you mentioned about saving things on email. Just make sure over that 4 to 6 year period that the email system doesn't change. And if it does, make sure you save them somewhere.
One of the worst years of annual reviews I ever had was we switched calendar programs, and I lost about 8 months of my calendar, and it was terrible. It was awful.
Sometimes that paper file comes in handy, doesn't it?
It does.
All right, Melissa, Allen, any comments from you all about the actually putting together the product?
I might just throw in addition to the saving of the different things, like our shared drive, all of that is saved on campus, even though I'm in a remote location. Another thing might be to save it to a flash drive to keep it home in a different facility. If the building burns down or blows away tonight, at least I've got something else in another location. So I'll just conclude with that.
Okay, Melissa, any comment?
I don't think I really have anything to add. I think they've covered it all pretty well on the planning and
Okay, all right. Maybe we'll ask some questions later. We can address that. Our final topic today, and we do want to save some time for questions today, is to address the role and importance of mentorship to the professional development process for extension professionals. So, Melissa, I'm going to ask you to take the lead on this one, if you would.
Sure, I'll be glad to. So I guess I've been through this process a couple of times because I started work as an agent, and I was assigned a formal mentor, and then I came to the state office as state faculty, and I was not assigned a mentor. So I've seen kind of both sides of this coin, where sometimes you have someone that the organization says, this is your person. If you've got questions, you need to go to them. They'll provide you with the information that you need. And I am very thankful for the person who was my mentor when I first came to work for Extension. He pretty well laid out, these are the things that we do in Extension. Here's how we do Extension work. He really guided me in a way that I don't know any other person who could have done a better job. But then when I came to the state office and I didn't get a mentor, I don't know that I really missed that person at first. And I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just an oversight. And everybody else's mind is like, oh, she's worked for us forever. She doesn't really need a person. But I was moving from a promotion-only track to a promotion and tenure track. So I had to figure out for myself, what is it that I need? What role do I need a mentor to play? And so that's where I think I've been kind of successful with the whole figuring out how to be mentored piece. I started by assessing myself, and I thought, what are the things I have really big questions about, and what are my weaknesses? And I built from kind of that framework and said, okay, what are my really big questions? Well, one of them for me was publishing. I knew publishing was an expectation, but I can tell you at LSU, no one's going to tell you how many publications you need to have in a year. So I reached out and sought out people at our university that I thought might could help me. And the way I went about doing that was I started asking around, who do you think at our university has a good reputation? Who publishes a lot? Who comes to mind? And I asked administrators, I asked department heads, I asked colleagues, who are the important people? Who are the movers and shakers in terms of publishing? And I got a few names. And I went knocking on a few doors. And one in particular has really turned into a good mentor for me. And I did not ask this person to formally act as a mentor. I knocked on her door and I said, hey, look, I hear that you're really good at publishing. Can you give me some hints? And from that, we have really, our relationship has moved from mentor-mentee in terms of publishing to mentor-mentee for, a lot of things, because she kind of took me under her wing. And so she's really gone on to teach me a lot of other things about being a faculty member that were never even on my list of questions. But it all started with, one, seeking out who are those people who are good at this, and then two, just going and knocking on the door. Now, I've asked a few other people in addition to her for some advice, in terms of publishing, because that was, like I said, one of my big questions. And I didn't want that to be something that I only had one viewpoint on. But I always go with a list of questions. I don't want to take very much time because for the most part, no one's been told you have to do this. In fact, none of these people that I've talked to were ever told you have to mentor someone. And I realize I'm taking their time, but I need this information. So I go with a short list of questions and try to get a little bit every time. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the other thing I look at is what are my weaknesses? So at our university, international work is a bit of an expectation, particularly as you move into that associate professor rank. They really want you to begin looking at building an international program. And that was a really big question for me. I don't have a clue. How am I going to begin to do this? So again, I stepped back and I thought about the same process I had used for publishing, and I started looking for people who could give me answers. It really took me a while to find someone who gave me what I would consider a good answer. I got a lot of answers. Oh, well, you need to publish in an international journal, or you need to go to an international conference. But it was like, no one really knew the answer to my question. I did finally find that one person. It was persistence that got me there. And when I found that person, he gave me a list. I must have a page of things, he said, and I was writing hard and fast. These are the things you need to do. He never stopped, he never slacked up with his list. You could tell he knew exactly what it took to build an international reputation. But persistence, asking questions, not being afraid to continue to ask people, even people outside my comfort zone. That person's actually an administrator that, I wouldn't typically go knock on his door, but I'd heard he would have the answer. So I did, and he did. So don't be fearful, I guess is what I'm saying, of choosing someone that is beyond your circle to go ask. Because often that's where you're going to find the answers that you're you're in search of. Because for me, that's what mentoring is about. I have a lot of questions. I need a lot of answers. And then from that other side of it, as I've gotten answers, I turn to my colleagues who are a little bit further behind in this process than I am, and I say, you know, here's some things you ought to think about as you're coming through this. So we really become, I guess, a little bit of a network in terms of I've been mentored, I'm trying to mentor. So think about those things too. Let me think. Collaborations is another thing that I got really lucky, and I found some people to help me build my network. And I think that's the other piece of this. You seek out some people, and then because you are out there looking for people to help you, they begin to look for you too. And you'll find each other. You'll find that network. And someone mentioned that a little earlier today. I don't remember if it was Michael or Alan, about building your mentoring network. People who both mentor you and that you can mentor. I think that's about all I have. Do you have questions? Or I'll turn it back to Rich for questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Melissa. Good advice. Alan, Michael, adding to that conversation?
Well, Rich, I'll say real quick, I wasn't good at getting mentors. I didn't think, but then I got in this FSLI leadership program. They required us to have one. And I'm like, oh, I got our provost, and it was fantastic. He helped me so much. You know, I'd have a question. He said, just do this. You know, it was just wonderful. I'm like, good gosh, what have I been missing all these years? I did stop and think back to some of the early, like my major professor and some people like that really were great. My first department head was a great mentor as well. But yeah, when Julie first contacted us about doing this, I didn't know all of the topics or anything, but she contacted me. The first thing I wrote down on a little Post-it note was cultivate a mentor, because it's just so important. That's right.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Alan, any comments?
I think I've been a part of both formal and informal mentors, and obviously those that have had training or at least a group process for being a trained mentor is very helpful. And anybody that's been through the process before you can obviously help you. And so, as she mentioned, don't be afraid to seek out people. Go knock on doors even if you don't have any relationship built with them.
Okay, thank you. I think that the key there is that we're not talking about just one person when we talk about mentoring. We're talking about going out and finding people who know different parts of the information that you need, and making sure that you make contact with those. Okay, now we have some time left that I would like to entertain questions that you might have for our panel. We have several that have come in already. Again, make sure that if you have a question, make sure you use the question and answer feature, the Q&A feature on your screen to ask the questions. Julie, do we have any questions for our panel?
All right, we have a few. Our first question that I'd like to pose to the panel is, could you all please speak to the process of securing external letters? The person who submitted this says that they think a lot of us can have concerns about selecting the right people who understand our appointments without teaching responsibilities. Okay,
who would like to address that question?
So Rich, why don't I start with that, just from a standpoint of I have to do this pretty much every year. I've got 5 packets that I'm doing it for right now. And to me, it's a little bit of a give and take. I ask my people who are applying for a promotion to submit the names of people who might supply an external review of their work. And, you know, and they can't be people who they know very well or they publish with or that sort of thing. But then I also have to just try to use my judgment to decide who will give me a good, honest, fair evaluation of that person's work. And so I always pick some from their list and add some from my list, and try to get that, you know, sort of a rounded viewpoint. if you get just letters that are friends of someone, you know, you might be missing something. And so it's good to have somebody, maybe they don't know that well, but that you know as someone who's a good, fair reviewer. It just happens over time.
All right, Melissa, Alan, care to comment? Okay, Melissa, okay.
No, I was just going to say, I kind of used a little bit of the process that Michael mentioned when I was putting together my list of who should review my packet. And I really thought through who understands extension evaluation. And some of them were people I knew well, and some were people I didn't know that well. And, you know, if there's anything you worry about when you're in a department like ours, where we're really largely ag ed, it's like, okay, but do we understand extension evaluation? So I understand, you know, there's people who are out there going, oh, gee, are they going to understand what extension is? So you definitely want to think through who are the people around the nation who understand your content area.
All right, so what I'm hearing is you don't want to ask your best friend, but you want to make sure you ask people who know about what you do. Okay, great. I see your heads nodding from our panel. All right. Julie, do we have another question from our audience?
All right, and our next question has got a little bit of a statement, and this one's more of an opinion piece. From this person's understanding, the tenure process was originally established as a way to protect university researchers who may publish controversial research. But their question, I think, is how integral to the quality and future of extension is the tenure process?
Okay, anybody want to address that in a philosophical way?
Okay, so I come from a place where we spent the last few years trying to get tenure for extension faculty. Okay, we didn't have it in the past, and now we do. And I guess I've chaired a committee and served on a panel and that sort of thing over the past few years as we've been going through that process. And one of my arguments would be that when we have extension specialists who are making recommendations to farmers or parents or whoever, a lot of times the lives of people are at stake. Certainly their livelihood is at stake. And so who needs protection from a disgruntled person more than that extension faculty? You know, you talked about it being tenure being something that protects faculty on campus from saying something in their classroom and not having the governor call and get you fired. Well, hey, our extension people need they need that same protection.
Okay, Melissa, Alan, any comments?
I would say that we can oftentimes get, I'll say, in a rut or stuck in the work that we do. And if we have promotion and or tenure kind of, I'll say, pushing us, that may make us reach to a higher level of excellence personally. And I know that there's all kinds of people that may gain tenure and promotion that you think, well, maybe they didn't deserve it, but that's beyond my vote. But I think that, you know, if we want to continue to be cutting edge with our research, with our extension programs, we need to be challenged. We need to push ourselves. And I think promotion and tenure can do that for us. But we've got to use it in a positive manner. We don't want it to just say, oh, golly, I got to get P&T and I'm so depressed for the next 6 years, I can't do anything else. So looking at it as a positive and trying to make sure that we use it to not only help ourselves, but to help our clientele.
All right.
Now, I know in our department, this has been, it's been like this hinge around which we've begun to work together, because we all need to get through the P&T process. So all of the young faculty members have kind of worked together collaborated more than I think we would have had we not had this goal that we were all working toward.
All right. Having been working in all of those situations with tenure and without tenure, I must say each have its benefits, but I think what you all have talked about in terms of the benefits of tenure is excellent points. Okay, Julie, another question?
Okay. One person states that in the past they have worked on projects where publications were produced, but they were not included. How do they address this going forward?
All right.
I will say that that's something you want to negotiate from the outset. So when someone asks me to be a part of a project, I ask from the beginning, okay, what do you expect of me? And in terms of publication, will I be a part of this or not? Because particularly as an evaluator, a lot of times I'm collecting the data that they want to be able to use to publish. So think about, what's your contribution? And then certainly I would discuss that with the team before you really ever started working to produce products.
Okay, Alan and Michael, any comments?
Well, I certainly agree with what Melissa said, but if it's at the end, then probably you don't need to be afraid to have sort of that crucial conversation with that person. Hey, I'm participating in this. I think I should be a part of this process as well. So.
I would agree with both of the statements, and also, maybe there's additional opportunities to publish in other journals. So, hey, can I be included, in future publications?
And I'll just throw in, if it's after the fact, you can still indicate in your vita or your dossier that what contribution you made to that publication. Certainly not as strong as having the publication itself as an author, but you'll still get credit for it if you write it up that way. All right, Julie, another question.
Okay, another question is, I would like each panelist to address how each of your university's other departments across campus receive and understand what extension work truly is. How does one get that point to have other academics receive and understand extension in a university environment and in the state?
Good question.
I might go ahead and start. Our former director of extension, Kathann Kress, made it a point when she came to Iowa State to individually sit down with each dean and describe and tell what we did with extension and outreach. And some of her stories were horrifying as an extension educator to learn what they didn't know about us. In other cases, it opened new doors from the top down with the deans to say, hey, go work with extension. They've got some folks that could help us in this particular area. So I think that was a very big help. It also allows us to develop new networks even at different levels of administration and at the faculty level.
Okay, Melissa, Michael, responses to that question?
Well, at MSU, we've had comprehensive departments for quite a while, and I think that's been a huge help for helping people understand what extension is and what extension does. In a few cases, you might say we brought other faculty along kicking and screaming, but it still has been helpful in doing that.
We're much the same way. We've been integrated research and extension for a while, and then I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, we added the integration of the teaching. So now LSU Ag Center and College of Ag, it's all an integrated group, and our P&T committee's integrated too. And that helps because from what I hear, I have not served on the state faculty one, but I have served on the field faculty. But on state faculty, I know that they defer. So if it's someone whose packet they're reviewing that's teaching, then the people who have a majority teaching appointment weigh in and give opinions on that. And same with extension. If the majority is an extension appointment or all extension appointment, then the extension people on the committee weigh in and can give some opinion about whether this is good extension work or not. And same with department heads. Most of our department heads at this point have both research, teaching, and extension experience. So that's helped us a lot.
Okay, great. We do have just a couple more minutes, and so we have time for one quick question. Julie?
All right, how have you all structured time to write when you work in the program and staff development arena and your role is to support others?
Okay, real quickly, couple tips.
I mark off time on my calendar. I mean, I schedule it. It's just like going to a meeting. I schedule writing just like I do a meeting with anybody else on this campus or off of this campus.
That's a real good point. I think I know our folks who work in that area, they're pretty good about getting out of their office and going somewhere else on campus, library, bookstore, coffee shop, or somewhere where they can, they're not being bothered for a while just to try to get that done. I never was very good at that. I should have been better.
I would say unplug, turn off your phone, turn off your email, and in addition to what the others have said.
Great, good ideas, good tips. Well, we're about out of time, so let me again thank Melissa, Michael, and Alan for serving today on our panel. And we also thank all of you for participating. And Julie, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, well, thank you, Rich, for moderating our session today, and thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you to our participants for joining us today.